Hey, what's up? Today I'm going to show you 6 really cool and easy to create layouts using Flexbox and Webflow. Really quickly, if you don't know what Flexbox is, it's a CSS tool that basically lets you create complex layouts. And if you don't know what Webflow is, it's basically a visual coder. It lets you code up entire websites ready to deploy with a UI. It's literally a design program, but you're making websites. It's really cool. If you haven't heard of it, you should definitely check it out. So having said that, let's get started. Okay, so we're in Webflow. I've already created a project. I'm going to drag in a section so we have something to work with. I'm going to give it a class of section because I'm super creative. And I'm going to give it a height of 100 VH. That stands for viewport height. It makes it take up the entire screen. That's not part of Flexbox. That's just really useful to know. And that's not what we're going to use for the actual layout. That's just kind of like a canvas, if you will. So now for the actual layout, I'm going to drag in a container. I'm going to give it a class, also very creatively container. And I'm going to make it flex. This is the magic button right here. Flex, it kind of explains what it is. We make it flex. And now we have a bunch of options. We're not going to touch these because this is going to be really simple. We're just going to drag in some other divs inside. And this could be any content whatsoever. You can put in here whatever you want. But these divs, I'm going to give them the same class, say div. And this is the important and super easy part. Now that they're in a Flex container, you get this option called Flex Child, right? If this wasn't a Flex container, if it's just a regular container, this wouldn't be here. But because it is, and now I can't access this, so I have to go here. Make it Flex. Now I can make them expand or stretch, I think they call it, grow. And now they take up the entire space. And if I had more divs, then it would be split evenly. But because we're doing it, because this one designed for class. But because we're doing a split screen, we are gonna have just 2. And there we go. That's a split screen. So there we go. That's our first layout. I'm going to style it a little bit so it looks a little bit better. And then we'll move on. Okay, so there we go. I styled it really quickly and made, 2 columns or a split screen. You can play around with it, but it's a really easy split screen. All right, for the second one, we're going to create a sidebar. I've duplicated this section because it's actually really similar to this. I'm just going to delete the classes of these so I can style them differently, but it's the same thing. I'm just going to call this one div 30. You'll see why in a minute. And this one, I'm just going to give it the same class. Goddamn. So I'm going to give it the same class, div, because I want it to expand. But this one, I don't want it to go the whole thing because it's a sidebar or side menu. I want it to give it 30% width. And now it takes up 30% of it. And there you go, sidebar. Really easy, really quick, really simple. Okay, for this next one, I've actually not duplicated it because it's a little bit different. It's a sticky footer. So what does this mean? Normally in a page, when you have some content and then some content under it, like a footer, it would minimize the space between them. So you would need some padding or margin in between them to have some content on top and then a footer at the bottom. But with Flexbox, we can have it so that the content stays on top and then it expands to take up the rest of the page. So again, I'm going to drag in a container and I'm going to give it a different class this time. Container vertical. And I'm going to give it some height so we can see it. And then something like that. And give it a background color also so we can see it. Something like this, maybe. All right. We have our container. Let's drag in our content. It's just going to be 2 div blocks. Just like that. I'm going to give him different classes this time. I'm going to give this div main and then footer. So again, we make our container flex. And this time we don't want it to go this way, we want it to go this way, so we make it vertical. And we want the main div, or our content, to expand. And the other one, we leave it to contract, or what's the word they use? Shrink. So now we have our main content and then a footer at the bottom. All right, so I've styled it really quickly just so we can see what was going on, and that's the layout. Okay, the next one I have duplicated because it's very similar to this one. We're actually not even gonna change this because we wanna create a hero section. So the only thing that I'm gonna change is I'm gonna add a div inside of the div that we already have, okay? And this is where we're gonna place our content. So say we want our logo there, right? And we want our name, whatever that would be, right? So in the div, we want to make it itself flex, and then we want to center it horizontally and vertically. And now we have a hero section with our logo in the center of it, and we didn't have to use margins or paddings or really calculate any numbers. It did it all by itself. It centered it, and it just looks awesome, or it would look awesome if we had an actual logo and an actual name. All right, so this next one, Webflow calls it a fluid grid. I personally would use grid instead of Flexbox for this. So I would make a grid and then, have my elements accordingly in here. But you can do it with Flexbox, and I'll show you how to do that now. I've made a container for it, but we're gonna need 5 content pieces. So I'm gonna make 5 grids and just paste it 5 times. And I'm gonna give it a color just so we can see what's going on. That and some margin. Like that. Okay, so now I've styled it. We're ready to do the actual Flexbox part. So we make the container flex, and we want to wrap the children. What does this mean? This means that if a child of the container, meaning something that's inside of it, is too wide for the container, it's just gonna wrap to the next line. You'll see why this is important. I'm gonna give all of these a width of 33.33%. So you have this funky layout, right? But for the first one, I'm gonna call it div grid first. I'm gonna give it a height of 66.66%. And now we have, hold up, what? Okay, so I figured out what's wrong. Basically the margin is throwing it off. I'm gonna remove the margin, and now you don't see it, but I'm gonna give it a border. There you go. Now you see it. So that's the layout. Okay, last one. This one Webflow calls the Holy Grail. I personally would not choose that name, but that's what they call it. Basically, it's a main piece of content with 2 sidebars at the side of it. So again, really simple. We're gonna have 3, we're gonna have 3 pieces of content, and I'm gonna, of course, make the container flex, and we want this one to expand, just that one, to expand, and bam. And now if you want to change the width of these, you can do, 20%, and now we have this kind of thing going on. But yeah, these are the layouts that we've created really easily with Flexbox, and there's a ton more that you can create. I'll link at the bottom the resources for this video, as well as a really fun game that you can play inside of Webflow that'll teach you and show you how to use Flexbox in a lot of different situations. And it's just really fun. You should definitely check it out. So I'll link that in the description. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. And if you liked it, make sure you like it. and subscribe if you want, of course. I don't want to force you to do anything, but I'd really appreciate it. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.